I found an empty pregnancy test box in the trash 3 days after my cheating wife brought home roses from her friend. We hadn't slept together in over a month. In that moment, I realized either I was losing my mind or my marriage had ended before I even opened that box. Before we start, please support the channel, hit like, and subscribe. The sun poured through the kitchen windows, painting everything gold. But the warmth vanished the second Samantha walked in. She was smiling too easily, too bright, like she was coming back from a picnic, not from whatever lie she'd just been living. In her hands, she held a bouquet of red and white roses, cradling them like something precious. "They're beautiful, aren't they?" she said, setting them in the sink like it was just any other Thursday morning. "A friend gave them to me." I didn't say anything at first. I just stood by the counter, frozen, my fingers wrapped tight around my coffee mug, knuckles white. She knew I'd brought her roses yesterday, cream-colored ones, her favorite, and those were still sitting in the living room, untouched, wilting in silence. I finally spoke, voice low and steady. "You have friends now who give you roses." She didn't miss a beat. "It's not like that. He's just thoughtful." My voice cut sharper than I meant it to. "Since when do thoughtful men hand you roses and you just take them?" Her expression flickered for just a second, but she covered it fast. "Why do you always read into everything, Jake? They're just flowers." "I gave you flowers yesterday, Sam," I said, stepping closer. "And you didn't even bother to trim the stems." She crossed her arms, leaning against the fridge like this whole conversation was boring her. "Maybe because you're suffocating me. Ever think of that? Suffocating?" I let out a quiet laugh. "You walk in with roses from another man, and I'm the problem?" "Oh, don't start another scene," she snapped, her voice climbing. "God, you're always so suspicious. Maybe if you weren't so controlling." That's when I cut her off. Calmly, without hesitating, I reached over, grabbed the bouquet, walked to the trash can, and dropped it in. The roses hit the bottom with a soft thud against old coffee grounds and eggshells. Samantha stared at the trash, mouth open, eyes wide. "Are you insane?" I held her gaze. "No, I'm awake." For a second, everything stopped. Even the clock seemed to freeze. "You can't control who gives me flowers," she hissed. "But you can decide whether to accept them." I shot back. "And you made your choice." We stood there like fighters in a ring, neither ready to back down. The golden morning light felt like a spotlight now, showing everything. The cracks in our smiles, the lies woven into her words, the ache in my chest I'd been avoiding. She opened her mouth to say something, but nothing came out. Instead, she grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge and stormed down the hall, muttering under her breath. I stayed there, hands flat on the counter, watching her leave. My heart was pounding, but not with rage, with clarity. Samantha thought I'd break. She expected begging, yelling, desperation. But I wasn't going to play the role she'd written for me. I glanced at the wilted roses in the trash, shook my head, and walked back to the table where my laptop and notebook sat. Work was waiting. Deadlines don't care about heartbreak. My name's Jake. I'm a contractor, custom homes, mostly around Boise and the Valley. I build things that last. Foundations that don't crack under pressure. Funny, isn't it? Because somewhere along the line, I forgot to check the blueprints of my own home. But here's the thing. I see clearly now. And this was just the first crack in the wall. 3 days passed. We barely spoke. The air between us had turned thin and brittle. We moved around each other like strangers in our own house, passing in the hallway, brushing elbows at the sink in silence, only talking when the quiet got too heavy. She didn't bring up the roses in the trash. I didn't ask about the guy who gave them. But every moment since that morning had started to stretch, longer, colder, quieter. Then Friday came. The sky had that early winter blue, clear but sharp, the kind that cuts deep by dinner time. I'd already eaten leftover chili and finished the dishes by the time the garage door still hadn't opened. It was almost 7 o'clock. Samantha usually got home before 6:30. Her office was downtown, 12 minutes away. She'd text if she was running late. But tonight, nothing, until the door finally creaked open at 7:14. Her heels clicked across the entryway tiles before I saw her step into the kitchen, shrugging off her coat with a breathless little laugh, like she'd just come from somewhere fun. I looked up from my chair, but said nothing. She didn't notice my stare at first, not until she walked closer and tossed her scarf on the counter. That's when it hit me. Cologne. Not hers. Something heavy, woodsy, unmistakably male. The kind that clings to skin and clothes when you've been sitting close to someone for a while. She caught my look, and for half a second, her expression flickered. But she played it off fast, heading to the fridge. Ugh, today was a disaster. Travis from accounting got a flat tire, and I stayed back to finish the monthlies. She grabbed a sparkling water, cracked it open, took a sip, all while avoiding my eyes. I didn't blink. You smell different. She tensed, then forced a smile. Oh, that's probably Jack's cologne. He gave me a ride. Travis's car was stuck near the parking garage, so Jack offered. We ended up walking an extra block because of construction near the exit. Jack. I'd never heard that name before. Not once in 10 years of hearing her complain about coworkers, deadlines, printers, or broken coffee machines. Jack. I repeated, voice flat. Yeah, Jack. She laughed lightly, brushing hair behind her ear like that would smooth things over. He's harmless. Very married. I watched her sip again. Eyes too bright, smile too wide, hands too fidgety. How long have you been walking blocks with Jack? I asked, standing up and moving around the counter until we were face to face. Her eyes shot up, defensive. What's that supposed to mean? I kept my voice low. I'm not accusing you, I said. I'm asking who you're choosing to walk with. Her smile flickered, just barely. Jake, she started, but I cut her off. I'm done playing games. This isn't about flowers or rides or mystery cologne. It's about the road you're on. If you want to flirt your way into someone else's car, fine. Just don't leave the door half open here. Samantha scoffed and shook her head. You're being dramatic. It's a ride, for God's sake. I gave you a ride once too, I said quietly. 10 years later, we're married. Think about that. She didn't answer, didn't deny it. She turned away and took her water to the sink, pretending to be annoyed. But I caught the way her fingers trembled as she set the can down. And as she walked out of the kitchen, there was no more laughter, just one word, muttered under her breath. Whatever. I stood there with my arms folded, listening to her heels click up the stairs. Whatever? Not denial. Not apology. Not even a believable lie. Just dismissal. And with that, the wall between us grew a little thicker. Samantha's birthday landed on a Saturday that year. The kind of day where the air feels strangely still, too calm, like something's waiting just out of sight. She'd spent the whole week acting normal. Maybe a little too normal. More makeup than usual, more giggling at her phone, which she said was old high school friends sending birthday wishes. By afternoon, the house was clean and buzzing. Music playing low, candles lit, chips poured into bowls like confetti. Our small living room in Boise was packed with familiar faces, her cousins, co-workers, neighbors who came for free wine and small talk. And Samantha, she was glowing in a pale blue sweater dress that hugged a little tighter than her usual style. She worked the room like a politician, laughing, touching arms, telling stories that made people laugh too easily. I stayed by the back window, sipping soda, watching, not her, the driveway. You develop a certain instinct when something's wrong in your home. You start noticing details that shouldn't matter, like the sound of unfamiliar tires on gravel. That's what I heard at exactly 5:42 p.m. A black car, sleek, polished, way too clean for this neighborhood, pulled slowly to the curb just outside our fence. The driver didn't get out right away. He just sat there, engine running, eyes scanning the front porch. I moved away from the punch table and headed for the door. It opened behind me, and Samantha appeared with a slice of cake. Jake? She asked lightly, following my gaze. What's up? The black car door opened, and there he was, tall, perfectly dressed, hair gelled just right. The kind of guy who wears sunglasses on a cloudy day like he's dodging paparazzi. He had a gift bag in one hand, small, expensive looking, the kind you give when you want to impress, not when you care. Samantha's smile slipped for a second. Then she covered it with a quick sip of wine. I stepped outside and met him halfway down the driveway. He slowed when he saw me, hesitated, then tried to play it cool. Oh hey, is this Samantha's place? His voice was smooth. Too smooth. I didn't answer right away. Just stared at the bag in his hand. He tried again. I'm a friend. Just dropping off something for her birthday. I looked him up and down. A friend. He laughed too fast. Yeah, from the gym. Just wanted to. Don't. I said, quiet but firm. You're not coming in. He blinked, caught off guard. Sorry. I stepped closer, close enough to catch his expensive cologne, the same one that had clung to Samantha 3 nights ago. I don't care what she told you, I said. You've got 30 seconds to walk away with whatever dignity you have left, or I'll take that bag inside myself and ask her to explain it in front of everyone. His eyes darted to the porch, then back to me. I didn't know. I don't care, I said again. Leave. Now. He held my gaze for a long second, like he was weighing whether to push back. Then he turned, got back in his car, and reversed out of the driveway without another word. I stood there watching him disappear. When I turned back to the porch, Samantha was in the doorway, arms crossed, pretending to sip wine like she hadn't seen anything. But her eyes were locked on mine. And for the first time, she looked scared. Not guilty, not defensive, just exposed. The music was still playing, but I couldn't hear it. Not really. The second I stepped back inside, everything went muffled, like I was underwater, or like my brain had turned down the volume on the world so I could focus on just one thing, her. Samantha was back to performing, wine glass perfectly in hand, smile glued on like fresh paint over cracked walls. She laughed at something her cousin said, brushed a curl behind her ear, and shot me one quick glance, like she was testing how much I'd seen. I didn't give her anything. Not until 10 minutes later, when she walked toward the kitchen with a half-empty tray of mini quiches. I followed her in. The second the swinging door clicked shut, I leaned against it, arms crossed, blocking her way. She froze mid-step, tray still in her hands. Need something? She asked, voice light but brittle. Yeah, I said. The truth. She didn't blink. Just set the tray down and turned to the sink, like rinsing her hands could erase the last 5 minutes. Jake. Why was he here? I asked, calm as stone. Your friend? Her hand stopped under the water. He just wanted to drop off a gift. That's all. Funny, I said, stepping closer. Because just a friend usually doesn't sit outside a married woman's house like he's debating whether to risk walking in. She turned off the faucet, dried her hands slowly on a towel, still facing the sink. You're overreacting. Look at me and say that. She didn't. Samantha. Silence. Who is he? Finally, she turned. Her face was set, not apologetic, not even defensive. Just tired. His name is Noah, she said. He's a friend from the gym. We've talked. Had coffee. That's it. Talk. I repeated, moving closer. Coffee. You're letting guys like that pull into our driveway for casual drop-offs. I didn't invite him, she snapped. He just showed up. I didn't know he was coming. Right? I said, staring hard. Just like you didn't know his cologne would be all over your sweater last week. She folded her arms, jaw tight. You're twisting everything. I'm seeing everything, I corrected. I asked you to choose who you're walking with. Instead, you tried to dance right down the middle. I haven't done anything, she said, voice cracking slightly. I haven't crossed a line. I stepped back and let the silence hang. Then I nodded slowly. Then you won't mind if I tell everyone out there that a man just showed up with earrings in a velvet box and asked for you by name. Her face went pale. He didn't. I cut her off. I told him to leave, I said, turning toward the door. I spared you. For now. And with that, I walked out, leaving her in the kitchen with her party dress, her perfect lies, and the tray of forgotten appetizers. I didn't go far, just out to the truck. I sat behind the wheel in silence, hands gripping the steering wheel, still tight. Inside, the music played on like nothing had changed, but I knew better. Everything had. I hadn't moved for 10 minutes, maybe more. The cab was quiet except for the faint hum of music drifting from the house, some upbeat pop song clashing with the storm building in my chest. My fist stayed on the wheel, knuckles white. Then click, passenger door. I didn't look. I already knew who it was. Only one person would slide into that seat like it was familiar. Only one person would close the door gently, like she was entering a confessional. Hey, Jake, Megan said softly. Samantha's little sister. Always too sharp for her own good. The kind of woman who watches from the edges and never asks questions she doesn't already know the answers to. I glanced at her. Legs crossed, boots dusted with snow, arms folded tight, like she was holding something dangerous beneath the surface. Want me to leave? She asked. I shrugged. Depends what you came out here for. She smirked. Honesty. That word landed harder than I expected. I leaned back. Go on then. Megan studied me for a long second, like she was checking if I could handle it. Then she said it. Your wife is lying to you. The words hung in the air like smoke. Sharp. Slow. I didn't react right away, just exhaled quietly. She said he's just a friend. Said they had coffee. That's all. Megan rolled her eyes. Please. That guy's been circling her for months. She's not subtle. The way she leans in when she talks to him at the gym, it's straight out of a movie. I turned to her. You've seen them? She nodded. Every week. Samantha thinks I'm too self-absorbed to notice. But I'm not blind, Jake. I saw the earrings in that bag. You don't give jewelry like that unless something's going on. She says nothing crossed the line. I muttered, bitter at how worn out that phrase sounded. She crossed it the second she started hiding things from you, Megan said, voice dropping. And I think she wants to get caught. She just won't admit it. I looked at her, really looked. What do you want from me, Megan? Her lips curved into a faint smirk. Not cruel, just sure. To help? She said simply. To teach her a lesson. I narrowed my eyes. And what would that look like? Megan leaned back, the leather seat creaking. Come with me right now, she said, casual as if she were offering to grab fast food. I searched her face for sarcasm. She wasn't joking. Megan. She won't stop until someone stops her, she cut in. And if that someone is her little sister, even better. I shook my head slowly. Why would you do that to her? A pause. Then Megan looked out the windshield, voice low. Because she doesn't deserve someone who still waits for her in the truck. Her words hit like ice water. She turned to me, serious now. You can sit here all night and let her keep walking that line, or you can come inside and make sure she falls off it. I didn't move or speak, but something shifted between us. Megan reached for the door handle. I'll be by the porch, she said. Don't take too long. And with that, she stepped out and headed back to the house, leaving the door open for me to follow. I didn't rush, but I didn't hesitate either. By the time I got to the porch, Megan was already there, one hand on her hip, the other resting on the frame like she owned the place. Her head tilted as I approached, eyes sharp with purpose. You ready? She asked. No, I muttered, pushing the door open. But let's do it anyway. We stepped inside together. The second the door closed behind us, everything slowed. Conversations dipped. A few heads turned. At first, it was just the usual glance when someone walks in. But then they saw Megan's hand slip into mine, and then they really started watching. She leaned close, voice barely a whisper. Trust me. Before I could ask what she meant, before I could say anything, she turned, cupped my face with both hands, and kissed me. Right there, in front of everyone. Deep, deliberate, slow enough to be noticed, soft enough to haunt, loud enough to shatter the silence that followed. The room gasped, not figuratively, literally. I felt every pair of eyes lock onto us. The heat of judgment, the confusion, the instant awkwardness. Someone dropped a plastic cup. A muffled laugh died in someone's throat. I pulled back first, stunned. Megan, I started, but she wasn't looking at me. She was looking past me. I followed her gaze. Samantha. She stood frozen across the room, wine glass tilted in midair like she'd forgotten she was holding it. Her lips parted, eyes wide, disbelief written all over her face. The glass slipped and shattered on the hardwood, red wine and shards spreading across the floor. The silence turned heavier. Then Megan stepped forward, cool and calm, like she'd rehearsed this 1,000 times. I think, she said, her voice cutting through the room like a blade. Someone should ask Samantha about her lover. No one breathed. Samantha's mouth moved, but no words came out. Her hands hovered uselessly, unsure whether to clean the glass, defend herself, or run. Around us, guests shifted. Whispers broke out. Nervous laughter. Some started grabbing coats. Others just stared, hoping this was some twisted party game with a punchline coming. It wasn't. Samantha finally found her voice. Megan, what the hell are you doing? But it was too late. The show was over. Megan turned and walked toward the hallway without another word. I stood there by the door, letting everything sink in. Samantha's eyes locked on mine from across the room, wide and wet with shock. Jake, she whispered, barely audible. Please. I didn't move, didn't speak. She took an uncertain step forward. Her mouth opened again, but someone at the back of the room cleared their throat, loud and deliberate. The spell broke. People started shuffling out. Coats thrown on quickly. Awkward nods. One of her co-workers mumbled something about an early morning. Another said nothing at all. Within minutes, the laughter was gone. The music kept playing, but now it sounded ridiculous. Hollow. And there she stood. Samantha, surrounded by broken glass, unfinished cake, and the ghost of a party that had collapsed in on itself. I didn't look back as I stepped outside. I didn't need to. The silence behind me said enough. The morning after felt almost surreal. Sunlight poured through the kitchen windows like nothing had happened, as if broken glass and whispered accusations hadn't shattered the night before. But the only thing broken now was the silence I'd hoped would last. Because when I walked in, she was at the stove flipping pancakes, wearing her soft, faded robe, humming something tuneless under her breath like it was just another Sunday morning. A mixing bowl sat in the sink. The air smelled like vanilla and burnt syrup. She'd even set the table, forks, plates, 2 mugs. I stood in the doorway, watching her move like a woman untouched by guilt. She finally noticed me. "Oh, you're up," she said with a bright, too easy smile. "I figured you might want something warm after, the long night." I didn't answer. She slid a pancake onto a plate and pushed it toward me, trying to look casual. "I went a little overboard," she laughed too loudly. "Made like 10 of these. I always cook when I'm nervous. You know that." My eyes stayed on her face. Nervous. She froze for half a breath, then smiled again. "I mean, everything got out of hand last night. Megan can be dramatic." I pulled out a chair, but didn't sit. Just stood there with my hands on the back of it. "She kissed me in front of everyone," I said slowly. Samantha's eyes darted to mine, and I saw something flicker. Not pain, not anger, calculation. She moved to the sink, rinsing a pan that didn't need rinsing. She's always had a flair for attention. That kiss, a cheap stunt. You didn't look like you thought it was a stunt. She turned, towel in hand. "What's that supposed to mean?" I studied her. "You looked scared." She let out a dry laugh. "Because it was humiliating, Jake. In front of my friends, my coworkers. You were the one standing by her." "It wasn't planned," I said. But I didn't stop her either. She stared at me, twisting the towel between her fingers. "So what? You're with her now?" "No," I said plainly. "I'm with myself now. For the first time in a long time." The silence landed hard between us. She blinked, mouth twitching like she didn't know how to respond. Then she tried again, voice softer. "Look, Megan's obviously jealous. She's always been that way with me. She probably made up the whole lover thing just to humiliate me." I raised an eyebrow. "So Noah is imaginary now?" Her expression didn't falter fast enough. That half-second pause, that single blink of panic, it told me everything. I let the silence grow. She stepped forward, reaching for my arm. "Jake, I didn't cross a line. Okay, maybe I've been distant. Maybe I flirted a little, but nothing serious happened. You know me. You know I'd never actually. I saw the way you looked at him." My voice caught. "I saw it, Sam. That look, you used to give that to me." She swallowed hard, hands dropping to her sides. "I made pancakes," she said again, as if repeating it could undo the truth. And for a moment, I almost pitied her. She was clinging to the ritual, the motions, the morning, the smell of comfort food, as if they could wash away everything that had been exposed the night before. But there's no recipe for trust once it's burned. I pushed the plate aside gently. "I'm not hungry." She followed me with her eyes as I grabbed my jacket. "Where are you going?" I didn't look at her. "Somewhere honest." And I left her there, standing in the kitchen in her robe, surrounded by pancakes no one would eat. The house looked still from the outside, too. I pulled into the driveway just after dusk. The sky above Boise had turned that grayish purple you only see for 10 minutes before full dark. Everything felt cold, muted, like the kind of silence that isn't just quiet. It's personal. I hadn't planned on coming back so soon. After I left that morning, I'd driven without any real destination, just letting the wheels carry me past empty lots, gas stations, old strip malls. I didn't want to think, but my thoughts chased me anyway. Samantha hadn't called, not once. Maybe she figured I'd cool off and come home to pancakes and another fake smile. But when I pulled up to the side of the house, I misjudged the angle. Distracted, tired, still chewing on the bitterness from that morning. My tire bumped the garbage bin. It wobbled once, then tipped over completely. I sighed, killed the engine, and stepped out to fix it. Plastic bags spilled across the gravel. Fast food wrappers, used napkins, a torn paper towel roll. Just the usual clutter of a week spent pretending life was normal. But then something caught my eye. A box, flattened. No label showing at first. I crouched to pick it up. And when I turned it over, the air left my lungs. It was an empty box of pregnancy tests. Not one, not two, a multi-pack. Used, tossed in a rush. buried under layers of trash like it could stay hidden forever. But fate has a way of putting things exactly where they need to be seen. I stared at it, frozen. My first thought wasn't anger. It was math. We hadn't been together in over a month, maybe longer. My stomach twisted. The cologne, the late nights, the earrings, the nervous laughter, and now this. The weight of everything pressed down on my chest. I stood up slowly, still holding the box, and looked at the warm glow leaking from the living room window. She was inside, probably waiting to try again, to lie better this time. I didn't walk in fast. I didn't slam the door. I opened it quietly, stepped into the living room, and sat on the edge of the couch like a man waiting for a meeting he already knew the outcome of. I placed the box on the coffee table, plain as day, and then I waited for her, for the moment, for the truth to walk through the door on trembling legs. The front door creaked open like it didn't want to disturb the silence I'd built. Samantha's footsteps were light, too light, like she knew I was home, like she knew something had shifted. She stepped into the room, purse in one hand, coat still hanging off one shoulder. Her eyes landed on me first. Then, slowly, they dropped to the box on the coffee table. The empty pregnancy test package, slightly bent at the corners, sitting in plain sight like a detonator no one wanted to touch. Her whole body tensed. She didn't speak for a moment, just blinked twice. Then, with a forced breath, she straightened and dropped her purse by the stairs like she hadn't just walked into a minefield. "You're back," she said softly. "I am," I replied, voice calm. Too calm. She walked toward the kitchen, but slowed near the couch. Her eyes hadn't left the box. "That's," she began, voice fragile. "Used," I said. "Found it by the trash after I knocked the bin over. Lucky accident." She stood frozen, halfway between the living room and her escape route. "Jake," she said, tone shifting into something more rehearsed, more careful. "I can explain." "I doubt that," I said, leaning back, arms crossed. There was no anger in my voice, and that scared her more than yelling ever could. She stepped forward slowly, hands open. "Look, yes, I took a test. I was late, and I panicked. Okay, I didn't want to tell you unless I was sure. We haven't been together in 6 weeks," I said. Her lips parted, but no words came. I let the silence hold. Then I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. "I've seen the messages." Her eyes snapped to mine. "What? What messages?" I didn't move. "Megan showed me everything. Screenshots, full threads. You and Noah." She swallowed hard. "Jake, those were just words. Just texting. It wasn't anything real." "Funny," I said, because the tone of those messages said otherwise. "You sounded invested." "That's not fair," she said, shaking her head. "You don't know the context. I know what he calls you." I cut her off. "I know the nicknames. I know when it started. I know what nights you told me you were staying late for meetings, and I know what you told him afterward." Samantha's face crumbled. Her legs gave out. She sank into the armchair across from me, suddenly small, like the walls had closed in around her. Tears welled up, but I didn't flinch. She reached forward, voice cracking. "Jake, please." It didn't mean anything. I was lonely. I was confused, but I didn't sleep with him. I stared at her. Then, slowly, deliberately, I pointed at the box again. "You sure?" Silence. Her throat tightened. "I don't know," she whispered. And that was it. That was all I needed to hear. I stood, walked to the closet, and pulled out the small gray suitcase I'd packed last week, the one I never unpacked. I carried it to the door and opened it. Not to leave, but to place something inside. A stack of folded papers, neatly printed, signed, ready. "I'll be presenting everything in court," I said. "The screenshots, the timeline, the emotional betrayal, the pregnancy test." She looked up at me, panic spreading fast. "Jake, wait. Please don't do this. We can fix this. We can talk. I still love you. I'm not interested in love that lies this easily." She stood abruptly, voice rising. "You're not being fair. You never asked how I was feeling. You were always just here, present, but cold. I made one mistake." "Stop," I said sharply, but my voice never rose. She froze. "You didn't make one mistake," I continued. "You made hundreds. Every lie, every message, every ride with him. Every time you walked past me, knowing what you were hiding." She opened her mouth, but I stepped to the door and opened it. Cold night air rushed in. Samantha's tears were streaming now. I lifted her suitcase from the hallway closet, already packed, and set it gently on the porch. She stood behind me, breath shallow, trembling. "I don't want to go," she whispered. "I didn't want any of this either," I said. "But you chose it." And with that, I stepped aside. She didn't move at first, but then slowly she reached for the handle, and the door closed behind her with a final, hollow click. It was just after 8. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that comes after a storm. Still, but not peaceful, just emptied out. I sat at the kitchen table, sipping coffee that had gone lukewarm, watching the morning light spill across the floor. Then came the banging, sharp, panicked, followed by her voice. "Jake, Jake, please open the door." I didn't move, didn't even blink. More pounding, fists against the wood. And then her voice again, hoarse and cracking. "I know I messed up, okay? I know I lied, but it didn't mean anything. It didn't go all the way, Jake. You have to believe me." I stood slowly, walked to the front hallway. More knocks, more desperation. I was scared. I was lonely, but I never stopped loving you. Not for a second. I opened the door. Not all the way, just enough to see her face. Tears streaking the same coat from last night, like she hadn't slept at all. She gasped when she saw me. "Oh, thank God," she whispered. "You're here." "I was always here," I said. She stepped forward, but I didn't let her inside. "Jake, please. You're angry. You're hurt. I get it. But this isn't who we are. We've been through too much to let it end like this." I said nothing. "You don't throw away years together for one mistake," she continued, voice trembling. "People forgive. If love remains, anything can be forgiven." I leaned on the doorframe, staring at her. Then I shook my head once. "Then go forgive yourself." Her breath caught, like I'd hit her with a word instead of a fist. She blinked, swaying slightly. "Jake." But I didn't speak again. Didn't plead. Didn't explain. I just closed the door quietly, deliberately. And on the other side, I heard her sob break loose, raw and helpless. But I didn't open it again. Not this time. Not anymore. The house was still again. Only now it finally felt honest. It had been 3 weeks since the door closed behind her. The house had settled, not just literally, though. The quiet had become something I didn't dread anymore. It lived in my chest, too, like everything inside me had finally stopped rattling. I met Megan on a Thursday. Small cafe downtown. Nothing fancy. 2 chairs on the sidewalk, the hiss of the espresso machine inside, a string of tiny lights overhead, even though it was still daylight. She was already there when I arrived, stirring something iced in a tall glass, watching traffic like it was a game. When she saw me, she gave that same sly grin, half amusement, half challenge. "You survived," she said. I pulled out the chair across from her. "Barely." She sipped her drink. "You look lighter. Divorce will do that." She raised a brow. "Still going through with it?" I nodded. "Papers are in." She hasn't contested anything. I think deep down she knows it's over. Megan leaned back, her eyes scanning me like she was measuring something. "I meant what I said, that night." "Yeah," I said. "You did what needed to be done." She smiled wider. "That kiss really sold it, huh?" I chuckled, the first real laugh in a while. "Maybe ease up on the dramatic kisses next time." "No promises," she said, lifting her glass. We sat in silence for a moment, just watching the world pass by. Cars, people, life moving on like it always does. Then I glanced at her and said, "Thanks, Megan, for not looking away, for telling me what I didn't want to admit." She shrugged. "You always deserve better." I just gave the truth a little nudge. I sipped my coffee, watching steam curl in the air. It didn't feel like a victory, just clarity. And sometimes that's more valuable than revenge. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't carrying her weight or her lies or the ache of pretending everything was fine. For the first time in years, I felt peace. That was the end of my story. Megan stepped in when no one else would, kissed me in front of a room full of people, and forced the truth into the open. Some say that was crossing a line. Others say it saved me. So, tell me, did she do the right thing? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, don't forget to like and subscribe.